At 7-Eleven on a sharp sunlit morning in May 1943, Lieutenant Cal Stanton tightened his grip on the control stick of his F-4F Wildcat as the fighter climbed through ragged clouds off the Aleutian chain. Wind buffeted the canopy. Frost crackled along the framing. Below him, the frigid waters of the North Pacific stretched like a sheet of steel. But inside the cockpit, something far stranger demanded his attention. A paperclip, a bent, oversized metal paperclip, wedged across the gun sight bracket of his Wildcat. It wasn't standard equipment. It wasn't regulation. It wasn't even particularly aerodynamic. But Cal had put it there himself. Behind him, the radio crackled with the squadron leader's voice. Stanton tightened formation. Bandits reported at Angels 8. Repeat, Zeke's inbound. Cal slid the throttle forward, feeling the Wildcat rumble beneath him. His breath fogged the inside of his mask as he glanced again at the crude little object perched in front of his aiming glass. A paper clip twisted into an awkward, almost spiral shape. To anyone else, it would have looked like a joke. To Cal, it was a lifeline. He'd bent it the night before, slowly, carefully, methodically, matching it to a strange scatter pattern he'd observed in his plane's misaligned reflector gun sight. Wildcat gun sights were notoriously finicky in the cold Aleutian weather. Lenses fogged, reflectors froze, calibrations drifted. Cal's had gone from difficult to nearly useless. So he invented something else, a simple mechanical visual bracket, shaped from the thickest paperclip he could find, that let him judge target lead using the aircraft's airframe vibrations and the clip's oscillation at specific throttle settings. It was crude, ridiculous, decidedly non-military. But in last night's test dive, the clip vibrated at precisely the right harmonic pattern to cue proper deflection. Now, as he climbed toward incoming Japanese fighters, Cal whispered, "Don't fail me now." A sudden flash glinted in the distance. Zeros slicing down from the sun, wings glinting like blades. The squadron scattered. Cal rolled into a climbing turn, heart pounding. The Wildcat groaning under strain. A zero slashed across his nose. Another dove behind his wingman. The sky erupted into contrails and cannon fire. Cal snapped the stick left. The paper clip trembled, vibrated into its familiar rhythmic buzz. A perfect bracket. He lined up through the makeshift sight just as a zero swept into the arc. Cal squeezed the trigger. Twin .50 calories roared to life. And behind the shaking paperclip, through the icy windscreen, Cal saw the zero burst into flame, spiraling downward in a trail of smoke. He blinked. For a second, he couldn't believe it. His ridiculous invention, his improvised harmonic gun sight, had just helped him drop a Japanese fighter. But he didn't have time to celebrate, because 3 more zeros were diving on his tail, and the paperclip, vibrating madly again, was already warning him, "You're next." The first burst of automatic fire streaked up from the black mouth of the tunnel like angry fireflies, tracers carving orange arcs through the ash. Kersey dropped behind the sandbags as bullets tore across the ridge, snapping past his ear, close enough to sting. Owen dug beside him, palms bloody from scraping volcanic rock. Henning's voice thundered from the crater. "Contact front. They're coming out of the caves." The Marines of Fox Company scrambled into a ragged firing line. Rifles snapped to shoulders. Bar teams sprinted forward, sliding into position behind mounds of broken concrete. Someone cursed violently as a Japanese round punched through a shelter tarp overhead. But Kersey wasn't looking down slope. He was looking at Hodge, who stood frozen, pale, gripping one of his remaining improvised flares like a live explosive. "Hodge," Kersey barked, "drop that thing and get a rifle." Hodge blinked, not in fear, but in confusion, as if he still hadn't accepted what he'd done. I didn't think they'd see it. I didn't think. You didn't think at all." Kersey snapped. "You lit us up like a Broadway marquee." The next wave of Japanese soldiers erupted from the tunnel. Grenadiers this time, charging uphill with chilling momentum. A knee mortar round arced upward, exploding halfway to the ridge and showering everyone with hot fragments. Owen screamed, "They're pushing left flank." Hennings fired his M1 until the barrel steamed. "Kersey, get that wire spool up to the next foxhole. If they cut our comms, we lose artillery." Kersey grabbed his spool and dashed forward, ash flying with each step. Machine gun fire stitched the dirt inches behind him. He dove into a half-collapsed bunker, chest heaving. Inside, 2 Marines clamped a field phone between them, shouting coordinates to the battery rear, requesting he grid reference. Damn it, interference again. Kersey unreeled fresh wire, splicing it onto their line with trembling fingers. Try it now, go. Before they could test it, a deep concussion rolled across the ridge. Not artillery, not mortars. A massive detonation from behind them. The Marines whipped around. A column of white fire had erupted near Fox Company's rear positions. The same unstable flare signature as before, burning too bright, too hot, too violently. Kersey's blood went cold. Hodge, what did you do? The answer came a second later. A panicked scream from Hodge himself, echoing across the ridge. Kersey sprinted back through the ash, hurdling debris and shattered crates. The battlefield blurred around him, rifles firing, grenades blasting, shouts echoing. But he only focused on that plume of blinding white fire. He found Hodge kneeling beside a sandbag wall, hands over his helmet, face lit by the glare of another malfunctioning flare cylinder. The thing was burning sideways, not upward, its propellant cooking off in a violent stuttering roar. Hodge yelled. It ignited by itself. I didn't even touch it. Kersey grabbed him, dragging him behind the wall, as the flare let out a final, screaming burst of light. Owen ducked behind them, squinting. They'll see that from Suribachi. Kersey snapped. They're not supposed to see it from here. But the damage was done. Down the slopes, the Japanese assault shifted, voices shouting, bayonets glinting, soldiers breaking off from side tunnels, and charging directly toward the new flare blast. They were adjusting their entire attack vector. Hodge's device was luring them like a signal beacon. Hennings crawled over the ash, sliding in beside the group. Kersey, we just intercepted a coded call. They think a flare is a U.S. forward marker. Owen's eyes widened. They think we're calling in reinforcements here. Kersey's throat tightened. If the Japanese believed the Americans were marking a landing zone or rally point, they'd throw everything they had into overrunning the spot before support arrived. The enemy wasn't just coming. They were coming harder, faster, and with purpose, because they thought that flare meant something far bigger than a tinker's experiment. Kersey shook Hodge by the collar. Your invention isn't just a mistake anymore, it's a trigger. You've convinced them there's something here worth killing. Hodge stared up at him, terrified. And what do we do? Before Kersey could answer, a Japanese officer's whistle cut through the air. Then came a sound no Marine ever forgot. A full, coordinated banzai charge. Hundreds of boots hammering volcanic rock, all converging on Fox Company's exact position. Kersey swallowed hard. We hold, he said, and we pray that flare was the worst surprise you brought us tonight. The banzai charge hit the ridge like a physical shockwave, an avalanche of body steel and war cries hammering up the volcanic slope. The ground trembled beneath Kersey's boots. Tracer fire slashed the darkness. The unstable flare behind Fox Company still flickered in sickening pulses, throwing long, jagged shadows that made everything look faster, closer, more violent. Hennings grabbed Kersey by the webbing. Left flank is collapsing. Bar team is down. We need someone on that corner or they'll wrap around us. Kersey dragged Hodge and Owen toward the shattered concrete wall that served as their temporary anchor. Japanese grenadiers surged toward them, some crawling low, others sprinting upright through machine gun fire, eyes wild with fury and adrenaline. Owen braced his rifle on a broken rebar post and fired until the bolt locked back. They're not stopping. They're not stopping. Kersey slammed a fresh clip home, firing into the mass. Every shot felt too slow, every breath too short. The enemy charge wasn't disorganized. It was focused, moving directly toward the brightest, hottest point on the ridge. Hodge's flare had painted their position like a runway marker. A fragmentation grenade landed 10 feet away. Kersey grabbed Hodge and threw him behind a slab of concrete as it detonated, showering them with ash and stone. Owen screamed, clutching his arm, blood leaking through his sleeve. Medic. Kersey shouted. No medic came. No medic could come, because the charge widened, splitting like a river hitting rock. Japanese infantry veering around the flare's glow and climbing both sides of the embattled ridge. Hennings yelled, "They're flanking both wings. We need smoke, smoke now." But they had no smoke left. Everything was spent. Everything except. Kersey's eyes darted to Hodge, to the two remaining improvised flare cylinders. Hodge followed his gaze and immediately shook his head. "Kersey, no. Those things aren't stable enough for anything but suicide. They burn brighter than anything we've got," Kersey said. "If we can redirect the Japanese, force them to shift toward another point." Owen winced, gripping his bleeding arm. "We buy the ridge time to hold." Hodge's face went slack with fear. "You want to fire those things again? On purpose?" Kersey grabbed one cylinder. It vibrated faintly unfired, but dangerously reactive. A single misjudged movement and it could detonate in his hand. The smell of unstable magnesium mix burned his nostrils. "We don't have a choice," he said. "You lit the signal. Now, we have to mislead them." Hennings overheard and crawled to them, his helmet dented, eyes wide with battle shock. "Where would you send it?" Kersey pointed downslope, not at the enemy, but at a rocky outcrop 50 yards east. "If we throw them a new beacon, something brighter, they might adjust their attack vector again." Hennings nodded slowly. "If it draws even a third of them away, we hold." Hull slid into the Zero's blind spot, so close he could see the rivets along the Japanese fighter's tail cone, the faint shimmer of cold air trailing off its wingtips. The Wildcat bucked violently in the slipstream. The Zero's prop wash was a physical force, hammering his fuselage like fists. The paper clip vibrated harder than ever, rattling against the gun sight bracket as if trying to warn him. Too close. Too fast. One mistake equals collision. Cal gritted his teeth and held formation, barely 6 yards behind an enemy fighter, closer than any sane pilot would allow. The Zero eased into a gentle climb, banking right, a maneuver meant to set up a kill on Hale overhead. Its pilot still had no idea that Cal, out of ammunition and desperate, was tucked into a shadow like a predator waiting for a perfect moment. Cal whispered to himself, "Come on, just a little more." The clip buzzed in a jagged rhythm, oscillations spiking sharply. Wake turbulence was intensifying. He was nearly in the Zero's prop wash. Another second, and he'd lose control. He pushed forward on the stick, just a hair, letting the Wildcat's nose drop beneath the Zero's line, not to attack, not to ram, but to position himself low left under the tailplane, a place no fighter expected an enemy to be. Because from there was one trick, one insane, never-taught maneuver that only the most reckless pilots ever attempted. Prop wash disruption. If he slid under the Zero's tail and pulled up sharply, his Wildcat's nose cone could disrupt the enemy's airflow, forcing a sudden stall in the Zero's right wing. Without touching it, it required impossible precision. The wake turbulence alone could flip him, but the paper clip, shivering with minute frequency changes, gave him the rhythm of the Zero's turn, the timing of each oscillation, the heartbeat of the air itself. Cal inhaled, then he committed. He dipped left, buried his throttle, and pulled into the Zero's wash. The Wildcat shook violently. His teeth clacked. A shudder ran through the wings like they might rip free. The clip buzzed in a high, thin whine, the unmistakable harmonic of a perfect prop wash alignment. Now, Cal yanked the nose up a microsecond before impact. To an outside observer, the motion would have been invisible, a twitch, a feathered adjustment. But to the Zero above, it was catastrophic. The airflow collapsed under its right wing. The Zero snapped downward, nose first, dropping into a sudden, uncontrolled half-roll. The Japanese pilot shouted something Cal couldn't hear, but he saw the man's head whip around in panic as the fighter entered spin. Cal peeled left, letting the stall unfold. "Hale," he shouted over the radio. Take him now." Hale's Wildcat dove out of the cloud layer like a hammer. 2 precise bursts, 0.50 calories, tearing through aluminum. The Zero ignited, a blossom of orange flame against the blue-white sky, spiraling toward the sea in a ragged column of smoke. Cal exhaled hard, sweat freezing instantly along his jaw. He had just downed to 0, without firing a single shot. But before he could level off, the paper clip buzzed again. Hard, fast, erratic. Damn, and what now? He rolled out of the smoke trail and saw two new Zeros diving straight at him from above. Guns blazing. Tracers streaked past his canopy. Bullets punched holes through his right wing. Hydraulic fluid misted across the windscreen. Cal yanked the stick back, narrowly avoiding a fatal burst. One Zero overshot. The other stayed glued to him. Hale shouted, "Cal, brake left. I've got one on me, can't shake him." He glanced at the clip, but its vibrations were different. Not warning of wake turbulence. Not harmonizing with airflow. This time, the buzzing followed a strange, pulsing pattern. Almost rhythmic. Almost timed? Cal realized with a jolt. The second Zero wasn't firing. It was pacing him, waiting to finish him at close range. When escape was impossible, the clip pulsed again, each vibration matching the timing of the enemy's gentle throttle changes. A light bulb went off in Cal's mind. The clip wasn't reacting to wake turbulence this time. It was picking up engine harmonics from the Zero behind him. The vibrations told him exactly when the Zero slowed, accelerated, an adjusted mixture in the thin air. A crude, accidental acoustic radar. Cal grinned through clenched teeth. "All right, friend, do you want to pace me? Let's dance." He chopped throttle. Hard. The Wildcat bucked. The Zero overshot, but only slightly, the pilot reacting fast. The clip pulsed. One long vibration, meaning the Zero was pulling back into position. Cal chopped again, then kicked right rudder, throwing his plane into a skid that would make an instructor faint. The Zero tried to match, but drifted off alignment by inches. The clip screamed. High-pitched, constant vibration. The unmistakable signal the Zero was right where Cal needed him. Cal had no guns, but Hale did. "Hale," he shouted. "Location directly behind me, take him." Hale looped under Cal's dive and rose behind the Zero. Perfect firing angle. Cal felt the paper clip tremble harder as Hale's engine harmonics overlapped the enemy's. Then Hale opened fire. The second Zero burst into sparks, a wing shearing away, the plane cartwheeling into the fog below. Cal let out a shaky breath. But before he could say anything, the clip vibrated again. A slow, heavy thudding pulse. A pattern Cal had never felt. He frowned. "What the hell is that?" Hale's voice cracked over the radio. Cal behind the clouds. 10 o'clock high. There's a Betty bomber coming in, and she's not alone. More vibrations. Slow, deep, strong. Not fighters. Something heavier. Something worse. More than one. Cal swallowed. Those weren't Zeros. Those were bombers, escorted, and heading straight for the fleet. The moment Cal leveled off, the sky seemed to darken. Not from weather, but from the massive shapes emerging through the Aleutian cloud bank. The paper clip's deep, pulsing vibration was unmistakable now. Slow, heavy oscillations that thudded through the gun sight bracket like a heartbeat made of metal. Hale's voice came across the radio, tight and worried. "Cal, got a Betty bomber formation at Angels 9, 3, maybe 4. Escorts unseen." Cal wiped frost from the inside of his canopy with a gloved thumb. The cloud layer peeled back like curtains. And there they were, 3 Mitsubishi G4 and Betty bombers, long, green, and fat-bellied, plowing straight toward the U.S. fleet. Their engines droned like massive insects. Their wing-mounted fuel tanks glistened dangerously in the morning light. Everyone knew the Betty. Fast, long-ranged, and explosively flammable. Behind them, the faint silhouettes of escorting Zeros flickered in and out of the cloud cover, pacing the bombers like wolf guardians. Cal felt his gut drop. The fleet below didn't have time to scramble fighters, and he was out of ammunition. "Hail broken. We can't let them reach the ships. We're the only ones in range." Cal scanned the sky. 3 bombers. At least 2 Zeros, maybe more hidden in the haze. And him? A Wildcat with bullet holes, freezing controls, and a ridiculous paperclip that somehow kept saving his life. "Cal," Hale said again, "we gotta hit them now." Cal's pulse hammered. He keyed the radio. "Roger. But listen carefully, we can't go head-on. I'm dry, spent, nothing left in the guns." Hale didn't hesitate. But Cal shook his head even though Hale couldn't see it. No, Hale. Their escorts are waiting for a lead attacker. You'll get cut to pieces if you charge blind. There was a pause. Hale's voice came back, lower now. Then what do you suggest we do? Cal looked at the paper clip. It wasn't vibrating from fighters this time. It was humming, deep and steady, as the bomber engines droned in the distance. The harmonic waves matched perfectly, like a tuning fork held to his canopy. And suddenly something clicked in his mind. The vibrations grew stronger when he turned slightly left, weaker when he dipped. It wasn't just reacting to engine noise. It was reacting to interference patterns from multiple engines overlapping. The clip was signaling constructive and destructive interference, meaning Cal could feel the bomber's angle changes before he could see them through the cloud. He could navigate the cloud layer using nothing but sound and vibration, a primitive, accidental form of passive acoustic radar. If he could break into the bomber stream unseen, he might disrupt their formation, force them to scatter, even cause collisions or prevent bomb release alignment. He keyed the mic. Hale, listen close. I'm going inside the cloud. Alone. Cal, that's suicide. Not with this thing, Cal said, tapping the paperclip. It's giving me their engine timing. I can get right into the pocket under their formation. And then what? You're unarmed. I'll improvise. There was silence on the radio. Finally, Hale responded. You crazy bastard. I'm covering you. Do it. Cal banked into the cloud. Instant whiteout. Frost crystallized along the canopy edges. Visibility dropped to zero, but the clip vibrated. Thump, thump, thump. Steady, almost calm. Cal whispered to himself. Left. Not too much. Steady. You're beneath the first bomber. The vibrations grew stronger. The harmonics doubling. He lifted the nose. A massive shadow materialized in front of him. The belly of a Betty bomber. Close enough to see the fabric seams along its fuselage. Cal's breath stopped. He was right underneath the lead bomber. One wrong move equals collision plus fireball plus death. He pushed the throttle gently, matching the bomber's speed. The clip steadied, vibrating in smooth, perfect rhythm. He was inside the pocket, invisible. Now all he had to do was break the formation without weapons, through the fog. A Zero escort streaked above the bombers, searching for attackers. Cal had one advantage. The Betty was massive and unstable in turbulence. If he could disrupt its airflow, just like he'd done to the Zeros, he positioned himself under the left wing root, dangerously close. The clip thrummed in warning. Too close. Too dangerous. Cal whispered, I know. Just hold 1 second more. He jerked the stick upward. The Wildcat's nose punched a burst of turbulent air directly into the bomber's lift surface. The Betty lurched violently. The left wing dipped. The bomber rocked into its neighbor. The two massive aircraft clipped wingtips. Sparks erupting. Fuel mist spraying. And one of them caught fire instantly. A flaming Betty spiraled downward through the clouds, smoke billowing like grease. The formation erupted into chaos. Zeros peeled off. Bombers broke formation. Cal burst from a cloud, trailing smoke, and hail struck from above like a hawk, tearing into the scattered formation with clean, decisive bursts. Cal, 2 bombers breaking south. I'm on them. Get the last one. The final bomber dropped altitude, diving for the deck, heading straight for the U.S. fleet below. Cal throttled up, chasing it. He was out of ammo, wounded, freezing. But he had one last trick. He dove beside the bomber's cockpit, waggled his wings, and the Japanese pilot saw him. Cal pointed with his glove, mouthing a single word through his mask. Turn. The bomber pilot hesitated. Cal positioned the Wildcat close. Too close, nudging the bomber with turbulence. Wings trembling. The clip vibrated in high, panic pulses, telling Cal he had inches before collision. The Japanese pilot panicked, jerked the bomber left, overcorrected, and stalled the wing. The Betty flipped sideways, then down, then spiraled into the sea in a massive plume of spray. Cal pulled up, heart pounding. Hale circled back. Cal, you did it. The bombers are down. All of them. Cal slumped in his cockpit, breathing hard. His hands shook. The clip hung bent and broken now, overheated from vibration. But the sky was clear. The Zeros were fleeing. The bombers were gone. The fleet was safe. Hale's voice softened. "He'll bring it home." But Cal barely heard him, because just as he turned toward friendly lines, the paperclip gave one last tremor. A faint vibration. Weak. Barely there. But real. Something else was out there. And moving fast. The faint dying tremor of the paperclip wasn't the frantic buzz of a pursuing Zero, or the deep, harmonic thrum of a bomber formation. It was something in between, an even irregular, almost limping. A wounded engine. A damaged airframe. Something out there struggling to stay airborne. Cal narrowed his eyes and pulled his Wildcat into a slow right turn, scanning the misted horizon. Hale's voice crackled through the freezing static. "Cal, you see anything?" Cal didn't answer yet. He listened. The clip vibrated again. One long, dragging tremor, followed by two short pulses. Cal whispered, "That's not American." The tremor repeated. Same sequence. Wounded engine harmonics. Something foreign. Something dangerously close. He tipped his Wildcat's nose downward, and the clouds tore open in front of him. A smoking Zero barely holding altitude, limping south with its right wing shredded and its engine coughing thick, black smoke. The pilot was flying low, too low, trying to escape beneath the cloud deck. A last-ditch attempt to make it home. Hale came through again. "Cal, leave him. He's done. Let him crash or limp out. You're Winchester anyway." But Cal didn't bank away. He didn't rise. He didn't climb back toward friendly skies. He stared, because this Zero wasn't running home. It was heading toward the U.S. fleet, barely airborne, but still aimed at the carriers below. A wounded animal with a last bite left. The Japanese pilot knew he wouldn't survive the return flight, but he could still kill hundreds. Cal muttered, "He's not retreating. He's going for a final dive." Hale's voice sharpened instantly. "Cal, stop him." "But I'm unarmed." "Then ram him." The words hit Cal's nerves like ice water. Ramming was a last resort, a near-guaranteed death sentence. The Wildcat was strong, but not that strong. One wingtip strike at the wrong angle and both aircraft would disintegrate. But the clip, still trembling weakly, gave Cal one last hint. The Zero's engine was coughing with an odd three-pull stutter, an imbalance. The clip's vibration lag indicated the wounded fighter had a heavy yaw to the right. If Cal could force a counter yaw by flying within inches of the Zero's damaged wing, he wouldn't have to ram it. He could flip it with wake turbulence alone, a trick even crazier than the last one. Cal inhaled through his mask. "Hale, if I don't make it back." Hale snapped. "Don't say that. Just do it." Cal rolled his Wildcat and dove toward the Zero, throttle wide open, engine screaming in the cold. The airframe shook violently, holes in the wings whistling like flutes of death. The Zero pilot finally noticed him, jerked his head back, and dove lower. Too low. Cal dropped beside him, matching the dive, then easing closer, closer, dangerously close, until the paperclip vibrated into a high, thin whine. "Come on, come on." He slid his wingtip under the Zero's right wing. Just enough, just barely close enough. Airflow destabilized. The Zero wobbled. The pilot fought it, kicking rudder, banking left, trying to keep control. Cal held his line. The Zero's damaged engine coughed again. 3 impulses in a row. The clip shrieked, and the Zero's right wing dipped too far. The fighter snapped into a barrel roll stall, an uncontrolled tumble, a death spin straight downward. The Japanese pilot fought it, but the wing was too damaged, the airflow too broken. The Zero spiraled, smoking, down, 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 and vanished into the sea. In a violent plume of white water, Cal pulled up hard, so hard he nearly blacked out, his vision tunneling. But he leveled. He lived. Hale whooped over the radio. "Cal, you crazy, insane, beautiful son of a you did it." Cal sank back into his seat, breathing hard. The clip, the stupid paper clip, hung limp now, bent and nearly melted, its vibrations fading into a soft stillness. It had nothing left to give. Cal whispered, "Good work, little buddy." He eased back toward the American fleet, where ships were already turning into the wind to guide him home. Hale flew tight on his wing, protective for the first time all day. As the two fighters descended through the Aleutian haze. Hale's voice softened. "Stanton, you flying that thing home?" "She looks half dead." Cal smiled through cracked lips. "So do I." The fleet grew larger beneath them. Gray hulls, white wakes, American flags snapping in the wind. Cal lowered his landing gear. The Wildcat shuddered. The clip fell completely from its mount, bouncing against the canopy frame. He caught it in his glove. A ridiculous invention, a crude tool, a lucky charm, and today, a lifesaver. He banked toward the carrier deck. Behind him, the sky was clear. The Zero's gone. The bombers sunk. The fleet safe. And ahead, a long steel runway, waiting for a very tired pilot, and a bent paperclip that changed the course of the fight. Cal's Wildcat touched down hard on the carrier deck, wheels skidding on metal still slick with morning frost. The tailhook caught the third arresting wire, jerking the fighter to a jarring halt. Deck crews rushed in waving signals, securing the aircraft, shouting for Cal to cut power. He didn't move at first. He sat there in the dim cockpit, engine ticking as it cooled, breath fogging against shattered bits of canopy glass. His hands shook violently, not from cold or exhaustion, but from the sudden release of everything he'd held inside during the fight. When he finally opened the canopy, Hale was already climbing onto the wing. "You all right, Cal?" he asked, pulling off his gloves and wiping frost off the frame. Cal held up the object in his palm, the melted, twisted, vibration-worn paperclip. Hale blinked. "That little piece of junk was your secret weapon the whole time?" Cal smirked weakly. More like a miracle than a weapon. But it worked. And it had. It saved his life in the first dogfight, helped him stall out a Zero without firing a shot, guided him through cloud cover like a crude acoustic compass. And in the end, it helped him stop a wounded kamikaze attempt before it ever started. The deck crew inspected his Wildcat with growing disbelief. Dozens of bullet holes, a damaged wingtip from turbulent strikes, the engine coughing through carburetor ice, empty ammunition belts, smoke stains from passing too close to burning aircraft. One crewman muttered, "Sir, she shouldn't have come back in one piece." Cal climbed down, boots hitting the deck with a metallic thunk. His legs nearly gave way. Hale caught him by the arm. "Easy," Hale said softly. "Let's get you below." But Cal paused, because something about the morning felt unreal. Like he'd stepped out of a dream stitched from desperation and physics and sheer dumb luck. Later, after the debriefings, analysts would scratch their heads at his report. They would read the words harmonic vibration lead indicator and passive acoustic turbulence cueing, and wonder if the Aleutian cold had scrambled his thinking. No official report ever mentioned the paper clip, but the mechanics kept it anyway, bent, burnt, and distorted beyond recognition. Someone taped a small tag to it. Stanton's MK.I emergency gun sight, Aleutian miracle device. It sat high on a bulletin board in the maintenance shack for the rest of the deployment. Cal never tried to replicate it. War rarely gives the same miracle twice. After the war, he returned to civilian life and worked as a flight instructor. Quiet, patient, methodical. When young pilots complained about faulty gauges, drifting compasses, or bad crosswinds, he would only smile and say, "Sometimes you don't need a perfect instrument. Sometimes you just need to listen to your aircraft talk." He never mentioned the Aleutian paper clip. But every now and then, when nobody was looking, he'd touch the left side of his jacket pocket, where a small, warped piece of metal rattled softly against a set of old dog tags. And he remembered the cold sky, the broken guns, the burning Zero, and the simple piece of wire that became more than luck. A tiny anchor of ingenuity in a world built to break men. If this story hit you, do me a favor and tap that like button. It helps bring forgotten wartime moments back to life. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and whether anyone in your family flew in the Pacific or worked with improvised tools during the war. And if you love these deep cinematic war stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications so you don't miss the next one.